Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Motherload. I am here with Amy. She is a mom of four. Her bio says almost four, but her fourth one arrived early. And so she is the owner and operator of Handful Dough. I'm going to have all of her links below. She also runs Congress Woodco with her husband. She's passionate about investing in her life in the ways that bring fulfillment, even if that means doing things a little differently. Some of her favorite things are thrifting, road tripping, and finding new places to eat. So, Amy, I am going to welcome you into this conversation today. I am so happy that you're here, especially after you just told me that your little one arrived 9 days early, and we had originally hoped we'd scheduled this in hopes that that baby would still be inside, but they needed to be out into the world. So I'm so grateful that you are here today joining us in our Motherload conversations, and I am truly appreciative of your time and the phase of life that you are in right now. And so, Amy, let's jump right in. I'm going to let you give your own little bit of introduction so that the mothers who are listening can get a feel for who you are, and then we'll get started into our conversation today.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be a part of this and just to talk to you. Um, it's really cool connecting in these types of ways, even though I get nervous every time someone asks me to do stuff like this. I do think that there's value in hearing other moms' journeys and stories and just being able to, I don't know, use other moms as almost survival guides. And
Mhm.
and so I'm honored to be part of this.
Awesome. So that's a great segue. What is your mama survival guide? How do you manage those really hard, heavy moments of motherhood?
You know, it's been a process. I think that when I became a mom almost 6 years ago, I found myself reading all the things and looking at all the other moms, and which is a good thing. Like, I think that, conversation and community, and just hearing other people's stories, um, especially the ones that you connect with, just knowing that you're not alone, are important. But there's also a point where I found that I just needed to trust myself and my
Mm,
journey, um, because when I started taking in so much, and that's when comparison came in, and comparing was honestly the a load. Yeah, there's like lots of things about motherhood that feels like a load, like the sleepless nights, the tiredness, the everything, right? There's tons going on, but my load came from like mental things of like
mm,
the expectations, and the comparison. And so when I started to trust myself and my journey, and that even though it might look different, even though the way I do things isn't the same as this mom, that it's okay. And that's where I started to be able to manage things a little bit
mm,
better.
That is so well put. I 1000% agree with you that a lot of the stuff that we intake creates all kinds of shoulds and comparisons and expectations. Like, oh, that mom posted that her baby is sleeping through the night and her baby is the same age as my baby. Should
Yeah,
my baby be sleeping through the night? Like,
totally.
and every mother is different, every baby is different.
Yes,
And can
exactly.
you speak to that too, Amy? Like, you're right in the thick of your fourth newborn phase.
Yeah, that's been like a huge one for me. Uh, and you learn, like, I feel like you have a baby and you go, like, this is me anyway. I have a baby, I go through all those things again, like they're not doing this, they're not, like Max, for instance. Like, I get paranoid about things like, I don't know if he's hearing properly. Like, I like, and then your mind starts. spinning and you start Googling and you're like, okay, like we're gonna have to, oh, just a second.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Oh, okay, he's good. Um, and just things like that. It's like, well, Navy Sage and Avon, they responded this way to things, and Max isn't. So there's definitely something wrong. Like you're, and it's like that's my biggest struggle um is not comparing to the next, or even like even walking and talking and think those milestones, like every we don't expect, like, my thing is creative, and that's my giftings and talents or whatever. And so no one when they how should I put this, like, I'm not good at math. And that's okay. That's not my thing. And so why do we put that on our babies, right?
Mm.
It's okay if like adults aren't good at this, that, and the other thing because they're good at this and that's their thing. But all babies are categorized in like one thing, and these milestones of, okay, birth to 3 months they need to be doing this, three to 6 months they need to be doing this, and if they're not, you need to get them in this and this. And it's like it's so overwhelming to me. And no matter how many babies I have, I think that it will always be something that I struggle with. Like, okay, Amy, calm down, relax your mind, don't spiral, because I don't know. It's just, I always do that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, yeah. And so learning to not compare my kids to each other, and letting them become their own people and helping them guide them into those people is something that I have found to be really important, and just easing and yeah, not thrusting them into things because I think that it's time, but just helping them along the way and letting them kind of discover themselves and things like that. So
Hmm. Yeah, I really like that. Actually, just the other day, um, a friend of mine owns Pathways
oh yeah,
and preschool, and she posted about language and how your child should do this by 18 months.
yeah,
And all of a sudden, I was like, he's turning 2. I don't think he does all of these things. I need to keep track of all of these things. Like, how many words is he saying? And how many gestures does he have? And how many maybe
yeah,
sign languages do we know? And for like 3 days, I was like creating this mental bank of
yeah,
like how many times he communicated with me and how many times I understood it.
yeah,
And then we did reach the number, the magic
yeah,
number. And and then about 2 days later, she made another post, and it was like, and if your baby's not doing these things, like, these are the ways that you can
yeah,
enhance communication and do all this stuff. But quite literally for 3 days, I was in this absolute panic. I was
yeah.
talking to my husband about it. He was like, Kayla, chill out.
I know.
Like, we know what he's talking about. Other
Yeah,
people can understand him. Like,
yeah.
it's like,
But it's
but
funny in those moments when you tell your husband that though, and then you think like he's not taking it serious enough. Where it's like sometimes I feel like after the moment I'm like, okay, I was like a little bit irrational, like, but
yeah,
in the moment I'm like, hey, like this is serious stuff. Like, like if we don't get
yeah,
this under control now, like we're in trouble.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then do you ever have those moments? Just recently, it's happened more often where like I'll look over my husband's shoulder and I'll see what he's looking at, and I'm like, what, why do you care about cars? Or like his Instagram, like his Instagram algorithm is like over here and
Yeah,
mine is like over here, right? I'm
yeah,
getting like all the mommy stuff and like how to decorate your kitchen and how to be a responsive parent, how to
yeah,
heal childhood trauma. Like that's what my Instagram is.
yeah,
And his is like fart jokes and
yeah,
cars, right? Just like, what, how come you're not reading this stuff? I'm
exactly.
inundated with all of this information and all of these things. And he's like, chill
Yeah,
out. Like,
I know. Oh man.
Oh, it's so, and even I find that part of the mother load is the more information you intake or you seek out, the more that the algorithm loves you because you're
Oh,
like, oh, now I'm going to throw sleep training information at you. And oh, I'm going to throw all of these gentle parenting tips at you, which you actually might find helpful.
yeah,
But along the spectrum of information, you're like, I can't do all of this for
exactly.
all of my children
Yeah,
all of the time.
yeah,
And am I a failure because I can't do that?
yeah. And that's when the guilt starts coming in because it's like even sometimes like I've even crossed my mind of man, should we have like not that like I mean, I'm so grateful that I have my 4 kids, but like you think like do I have capacity for 4 kids? Like it's like a lot. Like am I do I have like am I don't even know what the word is, but like sometimes I just feel I don't have enough energy in the day to give them everything they need. You know, sometimes I feel guilty for turning on the TV a little extra longer that day or, not making supper and having to pick up takeout and like and it does come from a lot of like I'm all for like I love Instagram for like the pretty things and like I like looking at pretty pictures and scrolling through, but I do also like the real um stuff of Instagram. But you so often see, the highlights of people's lives
Mhm.
and it's fun enough to take a picture that looks pretty, but at the end of the day, like a mom's life is so little of that tiny little pretty picture and so much more of just like silently questioning yourself often
Mhm.
and you know looking around and thinking like my house is never clean and my kids are having tantrums all day long and you feel like yeah, I don't know. The comparison is just so easy these days with social media. And
Mhm.
I find myself having to step back often because of it and just remembering that, like, everybody is going through their own thing. That person, yeah, they might look like their house is always clean and they always have the perfect meals and stuff like that, but they have their own stuff. And you know what? Even if someone's life does look perfect or seem perfect to you, that's okay. Like their life can look different and still like you can still celebrate them. I think that that's another thing where it's like just because their life looks different than yours doesn't mean you can't celebrate those things with them because we're like that's the journey of life. Like nobody's path is the same and I think that that's something that moms often forget that
Mhm.
like it doesn't have to look like your friends to be friends. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
you don't have to
Mhm.
look like a mom to say like, "Oh, we get each other. We're vibing. Like let's be friends." Like you can look completely different and have completely different outlooks on motherhood and stuff like that and still get along. Like
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. I really like what you said there about celebrating those differences,
yeah.
in comparison to the comparisonism,
Yeah.
like maybe that mom who you're witnessing on Instagram who has the matching children pajama Christmas photo, on her Instagram feed, maybe she's like done a lot of hard work to
Yeah.
get there, right?
Exactly.
Like to feel put together. Maybe matching pajamas are important to her. Like,
Exactly.
and it might not be important to you, so don't,
Exactly.
like, there shouldn't be a comparison in the realm of what someone else chooses
Yeah.
to be
Exactly.
important to them. For me, matching pajamas in a curated photo, not super important to
Yeah.
me, right? But when I see it for about half a second, I think, why can't I do that? Why
Yeah.
can't I get my kids to organize themselves and, get on the table and do whatever?
Yeah.
That's that's not me,
Yeah.
right? Like you said, like not being good at math, but you're really great at creativity. Is that same comparison,
Yeah.
right? Like what's important to you is creativity, not math.
Exactly.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, I want to go back to something you said at the beginning around noticing when you needed to stop intaking information, or when you noticed that comparison really like running kind of the
Yeah.
hamster wheel.
Yeah.
And what is your kind of like pragmatic thing that you do to lessen that in your life?
So when I am not an anxious person by nature. Like I'm pretty like go with the flow, like, um, but motherhood has definitely brought out anxiousness in me. And when I start um going through when I start spiraling, like I can feel it in like physical things of like um almost like I've had like way too much caffeine. That's how like that, and start like my heart starts racing. I can't think straight. I can't eat properly. Like it's and so it comes out in those forms, and I can't I can't rest. My mind doesn't rest. I try to go to sleep and it's like constantly like playing in my head, conversations and like eh, all these things. And so when I start noticing that, that's like like it's too late. Like I wish that like it didn't get to that point where I'm like, okay, Amy, stop and like
Mm.
and take a second. But I when that happens, I don't feel like I need to even everybody's different. And when those moments start for me, I just I delete the app. I say that I'm not going to go on it. I'm not going to engage in conversation. I'm not going to open up my messages. um and I don't really ex- like I don't tell people that I'm going to do it. I just do it, um just because I don't know. For me, I don't know if I owe people an explanation for my mental
Mm.
health. I just like that's taking care of myself is like should be of the utmost importance. And so um trying to justify or get permission to me seems like I kind of stupid. Like I don't know, like I just like yeah. And so I I really try in those moments to remember why I'm on those platforms, what my end goal is. Um, and that's not to be, it's not to compare, it's not to be liked, it's not to gain a million followers. It's community. It's,
Mhm.
you know, it's marketing, free marketing for my business. It's those
Right.
things, right? Like, and so I need to remember those things and then when I feel better, whenever that is, in 1 week, 2 weeks, a day, then I come back to it and it feels like a much better place because I focus on the good of it instead of the bad of it.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
I think that's really important. What you said, like not owing anybody an explanation. I
yeah,
feel like because we live in this digital age, where we have like we hold a computer in our hands, right? Like if we think back to like grade 8 version of ourselves, we could have never imagined that we would literally be holding a computer in our hands,
yeah,
right? Like
no,
the original whatever Mac PowerPoint thing that I did in grade 7, I can literally now do on Canva on my phone.
yes, it's
Like
insane.
it's insane. And we can access all kinds of information, right? Like, and all of the mom triggers in terms of in the circles, in my clients' world anyway, is sleep, relationship, and identity
Yeah,
are like those are the
yeah,
three things that are common threads amongst all of the moms, is
yeah,
that they're exhausted, some of it is self-induced,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Their relationships are struggling because we now have two people who are researching or engaging in phone self-care, and their identity. Who are they? What makes them a good mom? What makes them feel good enough? What is the right way to mother?
yeah,
And in my books, there isn't a right way to mother. Your way looks different than mine, and my way looks different than yours. That doesn't mean anything about us in terms of like a hierarchy, you know? Like I I chose to sleep train my kids.
yeah,
They're difficult sleepers. Sleep is a trigger for me. Sleep
yeah,
equals mental health for
yeah,
me personally. And so
yeah,
we had to make a decision.
totally.
And that was the decision. Do I regret it sometimes? Sometimes I do. I'm not gonna lie about that. I don't know now what I knew then.
Yeah,
And so there are changing things, but I you're also allowed to change your mind,
yeah,
right? Like things that were real for me then aren't real for me now. And
exactly.
I might make a different decision about
Yeah,
that. And this kind of idea of that, it's taking a step back from that information, I think is really positive. Um, have you ever asked someone in an older generation what they did when they had a parenting question?
no, I haven't asked actually.
So, so I asked my mom
Yeah,
before we had our second. I was like, "What did you do when whatever XYZ came up?" And
yeah,
she was like, "I we just did it." Like there, like like I don't know. Like there was no like three-step pattern for you to get your
yeah,
boots on when you were being resistant at the door. It was just you have to get your boots on,
yeah,
or I'm going to pick you up and carry you to the car, like that.
exactly.
Like
Yeah,
it's that. And I was
yeah,
like, okay, interesting. Did you talk about that with friends, or like, because my mom is a single parent, so she also
yeah,
didn't have a partner
yeah,
to bounce these things off of, which in hindsight I actually think helped,
yeah,
because it was just her way. She didn't have to compromise on some of those
exactly.
things. She didn't
Yeah,
have to have those conversations.
yeah,
And she was like, no, we didn't really. Like, we didn't really talk about parenting. It wasn't like, oh, this is a funny story. So I told my mother-in-law that we were sleep training
yeah,
our who is now our oldest 6 years ago. And she stops me halfway through the story. I'm like telling her all the preparation and all the steps and all the things, right? And I'm jazzed about it.
yeah,
And she's like, "You're getting him to sleep by himself." And I was like, "No, no, but there's steps involved." Like, cause
yeah.
and she's like, "No, you're getting him to sleep by himself." And
Totally.
I was like, "Yeah, but there's steps." She's like, "No, Kayla, there's no steps."
Yeah,
It's like, you got to let it go.
yeah,
But it was like a lifeline. It was
yeah,
like I had to focus on something
yeah,
to make all of the other things that were out of control feel better.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting how I didn't think that was going to be my thing. Like heading into parenthood, I didn't think that sleep was going to be my thing that I struggled with.
And that's how it goes though, right? Like it's like before parenthood, you're like you see memes about it all the time. Like when I'm a parent, I'm not going to do this, this, and this. And then when you are a parent, then you do all of those things. That's how it
Yeah.
is. It's like you have all these expectations, or you see other parents do things and like, oh, I'm never going to do that. And like you do what you do to survive, really.
Totally.
Like, and there's things that, and even how you said like um, before about sleep training, and some days you think like, well, like you don't think so great about it or whatever.
Mhm.
um it's like you do what you do in that moment, and you do the best you can, and sometimes it you do there's oftentimes in parenthood where think that like I do something, and then even with the next kid I think like, oh, man, I wish I would have known this like
Mm.
a couple years ago. And then again, then it sends me into a spiral of like, did I ruin Navy because I did it this way and now I know better and I did it this way with Sage? And like, it
Mhm.
sends me into like those types of thoughts where it's like, no, Amy, they're fine. You did your best, and that's good. Like that's enough.
Mhm.
Um, because yeah, you're tired, you're exhausted, you're new at this. Like you gave birth to a human, but like you also became a new person. Like you weren't a mom before. Like no one should ever expect you to know it all as soon as you birth this child, because you're not going to. Like
Mhm.
you're navigating all these new things, and it's a big thing. Like it's not something that you just like, okay, I'm a mom, now I know everything.
Right?
It's a journey, and like I mean, I'm only like 6 years into it, and I like, and you get your baby, you teach your baby to sleep, and you think like, oh awesome, okay, then you teach them to go to the bathroom and then think, oh awesome, like, but there's always going to be those moments like of like not knowing what to do, then figuring it out and doing it, and maybe in a year or two have regrets about how you did it because you read something about like you can do it this way, and you think, oh yeah, I could have done it this way, but I mean, too late now, you've done it the way you've done it, like,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love what you said there about like reassessing that when you have subsequent children, or even years later when you read something like in the work that I do. I'm constantly keeping up to date on things
yeah,
in the postpartum mothering. What are the hot topics, what are the things that people are doing or struggling
yeah,
with finding on the internet. And and it changes. Like, I
yeah,
became a parent 6 years ago. The information that is out now is very different than the information that
yes,
I was reading. And
totally,
so there's this tug and pull of like, oh well, this is a really cool way to do this thing, and I wish I would have known that then, but
yeah,
I didn't know it then, and I shouldn't expect myself to know everything about
exactly,
everything all of
yeah,
the time.
yes, I know, but like, why, yeah, it's like when you say it, it's like, well, yeah, like, duh, you shouldn't,
Yeah.
but like, then why do we like think these things? Like, why is it something that we have to like navigate? Like, it's such a, motherhood is such a crazy thing when it comes to that, because it's like, well, no, duh, you don't need to know everything. Like nobody
Right.
knows everything about anything, but yet we put that pressure on ourselves
Hmm.
somehow.
Yeah. Like, I would never expect my friend who's not self-employed to know the ins and outs of Instagram,
Exactly.
right? But I do, because
Yeah.
this is my job. Like,
Yeah.
social media is a part of my job. If I
Yeah.
wrote myself a job description, social media marketing would be on there.
Yeah.
Like, I need to know it, or I choose to know it. I choose to want
Exactly.
to. I'm
Exactly.
choosing my business to be on Instagram.
Yeah.
And but my friend who uses it personally to share photos with her family, she's like, how
Yeah.
do you do that? How do you
Yeah.
have time for that? How do you make all these graphics? Like, it seems
Yeah.
like it seems like you have all this time to do all these things. And I'm like, yeah, because like when you're at work doing your job from 8 to 5 and your tasks that I have no idea about and or how to comprehend, this like I'm on Instagram. That's
Exactly.
like, I'm
Yeah.
responding to messages, I'm talking to clients, I'm
Yeah.
like, navigating those things. And it's such an interesting, like, I would never expect that of somebody else,
No,
ever.
I know.
Yeah.
And even when we like, even when it comes to other moms, we don't expect that. Like when we see another mom, we don't expect that of her. But then, but internally, we expect that of
Mhm.
ourselves so often. Like it's
Mhm.
just like, yeah, I like it's just such a weird, like weird thing of like when I see other moms, like I have so much grace for them, I guess. Like I just think
Mhm.
like, you like, take it easy on yourself. You got
Yeah.
this. Like your house is a mess. Well, no, duh, your house is a mess. Like it's okay. Like you had to pick up supper. That's, yeah, of course you did. Like look at you. You have kids running around all day, and you didn't have time to do it. Like you just like you think nothing of it when it comes to someone
Mhm.
else. Like, but why is it so hard for you to think of it like that for yourself? Like for me
Mhm.
anyway. Like I think that like that's like a thing, a journey that each individual goes on, and some are further along their journey than others, and I'm still kind of smack dab in it of like knowing in my head, like knowing all these things, but like practicing them is like a
Mhm.
completely different thing. Like, and it takes a lot of effort and like intention to,
Mhm.
you can access all the information and you can know these things, but doing them is
Mhm.
completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. My therapist said to me a couple weeks ago, they were like, Kayla, take 66 days to like, it used to be 21 days, like you to form a new habit or to
Yeah,
kick a
yeah,
habit or whatever. But he was like, if you do, he was teaching me how to ground myself in the middle of like a tantrum. Like
okay,
my son's, he's got big feelings and I get reactive and then he gets reactive and it's this whole cycle. So he was
right,
teaching me how to like ground myself in the moment. And he was like, Kayla, you have to do this every day. Like
yeah,
not in the middle of a tantrum. That's not when you practice it.
yeah,
You practice it when you're not in it. Like,
yeah,
so he said, like literally 60 times a day. You practice this thing. You can practice it in the bathroom. You can practice it while you're driving. You can practice it sitting here right now with you. Like,
yeah,
and he was like, 66 days. Like, and that's when we're going to check in to see how you've noticed these
yeah,
changes. That's like neuroscience, 66 days.
yeah,
And so, this some of the themes that we're talking about in terms of comparisonism and feeling enough and like catching those thoughts when they come in, like you said, like it's too late when
yeah,
I'm already physiologically feeling those sensations of anxiety,
yeah,
like, and not too late, you can still do something about it once you notice it,
yeah,
but noticing it sooner, that's a practice,
yeah,
that's something, that's an awareness of your body, it's living
yeah,
in here and not here.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, and he said to me, he's like, Kayla, man, you got to live in your body. Like he said, you came in here and you were like jazzed and spouting off all the things. It's like that's all coming from here.
Yeah,
Like that's not coming from here. And
yeah,
I was like,
totally.
okay,
Yeah,
all right, I'm ready. Like, thank you for calling me on my stuff.
yeah,
I'm I'm here now.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, totally.
yeah. Yeah. What is, as we wrap up our conversation today, Amy, what is one thing or a couple of things
Yeah.
that you wish moms could know? And just so you know, the mother load, we've got spectrum of like new moms, like just like you, subsequent children, but some of them are in the newborn phase, all the way to like 8 year olds.
Yeah. What I wish moms would know. I just I guess my heart is that like I just really do want moms to know that they are capable. And it doesn't mean that everybody's journey looks the same. Like, my journey doesn't necessarily deal with like mental health or things like that, but like knowing that if your journey does look like that and there are things that you need to do to be okay to mom the way that you need to mom, that's okay. Like
Mm,
I don't
mhm.
know if I'm saying that right, but like you you do what you need to do in order to mother your kids and love your kids the way they need to be loved. And that looks so different than all of us. And to share your story. Like I think like for me, I find that so often I'm scared to share certain parts of my story because I don't want it to seem like I know it all or that the way I do things is the best way because it's not. It's not at all. But I just want moms to know that like they're not alone. So if there's a mom who kind of resonates with what I'm saying, like I want her to know that like you're not alone. Like this is real stuff that we deal with um and then on the same like on the other side of the spectrum it's like if you if you don't resonate with what I'm saying, that's okay too because we don't all journey the same way, like, and so you do whatever you need to do. um and that we can, yeah, like I said before, and we can all celebrate those differences and we can all get along. Like sometimes I feel like becoming a mom kind of takes you back to almost like high school in a way where it's like these different like cliques of
Mm.
mums, and like it that like it's it's bothersome. Like I don't like that because we're all moms and we all need support and we all need love, and so I think that that's something that I often think about and need to practice more, I guess, but is that we just all need to support each other. And like yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel that. I feel that especially in moms groups. I've had moms admit that, like, partway through a journey with the same safe group of people,
Yeah.
and they'll say something like, "Man, week one, I surveyed the room to see how many of you were breastfeeding, how many of you were
Yeah.
formula feeding, how many of you came in with your car seats or a carrier,
Yeah.
how many of you, like, just finding themes in the way
Yeah.
that people talk." And I'm totally with you in terms of the, like, we're, at the base humanistic level, we're all mothers and we're all struggling with
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
and your struggle might look different than my struggle, and the way that things come through my eyes and out my mouth is different than the way that they come through your eyes and out your mouth, right?
Yeah.
And all of those differences, I really love and want to end on the note that, like, we can all celebrate each other's strengths and each other's um things that we're all working towards
Yeah.
being, and we might not be good at this right now,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that you're less of a parent or you're less
Yeah.
worthy to parent, you know and to honor each other's pain and each other's struggle, in the sense that I might not find that particularly painful,
Yeah.
but you're finding it painful, and
Yeah.
that's valid.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I really, really appreciate you being here, Amy, and really, really have appreciated this conversation, and really just honor where you're at in your mothering. And again, a big, like, 10-5 for you being here with a newborn on the other side of the door. And I really wish you well in all of the things. And if anyone wants to connect with Amy, her sensory dough is amazing, and
Oh, thank
so I'm going to have your links below, so that you can check her out and all the things that she does, for this community. So thank you so much, Amy, for being here, and I wish you well.
thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.